I think somewhere on the desk here lies the parts for making the third building for my Ash Wastes Shanty Town settlement. You may have seen some of these parts in the first video in the series, and a lot of time has passed since the last video, so I'm going to start getting back to this and gluing some things together. I think my aim is to try and make one good sized building out of this, and I really want to make use of this odd part here. Again, this was one of these gift pack things with toiletries, and I've taken both sides of that and stuck them back to back. But how you fit that into the bigger scheme, I'm not sure yet. But I know I want to make things that have got a bit of height to them. So I do think it's just a case of getting some super glue onto the shape and holding it in place till it sticks. And then, as before, just a case of adding some nice industrial features, structural features, which will help to give it the impression of having some sort of engineering behind it. Yeah, it's just little bits like this make all the difference. And the aim, as before, is to try and create overhangs and awkward shapes. And as before, I'm going to make use of Warhammer 40k parts from various kits, which will help ground it in that universe. I've no plan as to what the building's going to be yet. Just going to see how it looks as it goes. Okay, so I need to leave that to dry a bit and then work out what I'm doing with it. On this piece here, still got some of this stuff left over from the previous couple of buildings, and it's a really nice fit on there. And as you can see, it lines up nicely with that seam, so that's worth using. Yeah, fortunately I had a couple of these parts which I've been able to cut down and fit into that angle there. That looks really nice. Yes, that's a nice example of just sticking things together, ending up with an interesting shape starting to appear. Now for the tricky bit is how to get these parts together. You know, they're both wanting to fall down, so if I can get them slightly countering each other. What I found was this plastic box piece here fits nicely under there. It's a pretty snug fit. And then I could glue that on there. That could be the start of quite a nice overall shape. I just really like when unassociated parts just happen to fit together. It's always a good sign. Yeah, I'm happy with that as an overall shape. It's got some nice overhangs, and I can kind of build it up vertically a bit perhaps and create something a bit interesting. I think though I'm just going to pad out the footprint a bit with some other just random shapes that I can just glue onto the sides. I will glue the whole thing down onto a sheet of plastic card to make a proper base for it, like the others, but I just want to make it a bit sturdier. Nothing has to be perfectly straight. I mean, it's meant to be a cobbled together shantytown structure. Got this nice little access stair and a door recovered from a different model. Yeah, I think that would make a nice little entryway at this side of the building. It's maybe a bit early to be adding detail parts, but it can help just with the forming of the overall building. Once you start seeing where the entrances are or other important features, it can start to make more sense. Might be fun to include a few objects like this for the ones you don't want to recycle. Maybe save one for a kit bash. I just like the idea of this implausibly large overhang here growing. For the most part, because in terms of the way that old cartridge looks, a lot of it is covered in nice sci-fi detailing. I just need to cover up the names. That's where little simple pieces like this can be really handy. And then a couple of the Sector Mechanicus parts happen to fit quite nicely in these recesses. And I've made some simple resin casts of some of the parts I have, so I can reuse the shapes. I'm also going to try and make use of this cardboard piece that I made very early on in the whole process. Maybe balance it up on top in a precarious way, which would be quite a shantytown thing to do. I'll need to add some ladders and platforms and things to get up to that kind of position, but I quite like the idea of having that height. So to kind of flesh it out a bit, with a bit more structure, chop up some of these things that I've got lying around. Right, that'll do. Up there, a rather precarious place to stay, but I think that's my overall shape done. I've got some obvious things. I will eventually stick this tube on there down to the ground, so that would be something. I'm going to need to cut out a base to mount this on, and that's going to help hold everything together, so I might do that next. You can get left with little gaps around the base, so I just grab some plasticard of different thicknesses, just get some glue under there, and then you can just add a little bit of plastic to the corners to give you a better hold on the base. But that feels nice and sturdy now. Now I can glue these different bits together. Try and get reasonably straight. Yeah, I'm just using a mixture of super glue and plastic glue and whatever else I can use to hold things together. The important thing I'll want to do also is just come around the bottom edge of the base there and just sand that off to neaten it. Maybe put a bit of a rounded edge on it. I tend to do that with the bases. If anything, do that first before gluing the building down, of course. Right, so that completes stage one, the basic form. Really interesting shape. Interesting silhouettes as you move around it. Lots of variety. And now just lots of places to have fun and start detailing and gluing things together. Just as a bit of a side note, I've got a couple of these maps. These are the Carta Galactica maps by Games Workshop. This one is the Secunda exclusion zone, as in Hive Secunda, which is down in the left hand corner here. I'm going to have trouble showing the size of these maps, but I wanted to at least quickly show them because for a lot of these buildings, whether it's shanty town things or other structures, facilities, manufacturing plants, whatever it is, if you're needing to find some inspiration, sources like this can be really useful. And on these maps you have, there's a key showing you what the little symbols mean, major settlements, hives, cranes, points of significance, hazards, where ash wastes nomads are known to live, things like that. There's all sorts of different things, and sometimes the problem with creating settlements and features for your tabletop games is coming up with names and a bit of background for them to make them make sense. So like on a map like this, I mean, without having to spend much time looking at it, you have things here, you know, the old Gunshine Distillery, Gavor's Tower over there, the Scorched Road. There's a whole crane network here, which would have lots of good opportunities for kit bashing and modelling. The Vox relay station up there. So you could find something on a map like this and use it as a bit of a focal point to inspire you in terms of making some buildings or structures. The other map I've got is the Western Hemisphere of Necromunda, based around Hive Primus here. Gives you an idea of the scale. This map's much further out. You can see all these hives clustered around Primus. But even on here you've got these little features, the planetary defence silos, which are these large guns that can fire up to any enemy spaceships up in orbit. Great place to do some modelling for that. I intend to do something like that actually. So yeah, all these little locations and names of trade routes or roads and whatever else is on here just all act as a great starting point for coming up with your own fiction and fitting it in with a wider, more established story and fiction. It's the sort of thing that you can just have a look at this for a while and just imagine what all these things might look like. I mean, this over here, the Scum Lake, it's a nice name, and then there's the Scrappers Pier, again plenty of things you could model there. A little settlement or fortress called the Weeping Waters. Then a couple of, well, it's quite a number of these settlements around about Edgetown on the Great Ash Road West. A nice name there, Dust Blind. Here's Beatdown Town, which is a great name. Cinderak City. So yeah, highly recommend. Quite tricky to get these now. I happen to have a couple of them, but they're maybe not so easy to obtain anymore. Okay, so that's phase one essentially completed. Phase one just being the build of the overall shape. The main form is now there. The bulk of it is done. The silhouette is what I'm after. And now moving on to phase 2 is where I start dressing all these flat surfaces and giving it a bit more life, more detail, finding suitable bits in the bits box, and also some nice materials to stick onto those flat sides. The aim being to get it to fit in with the previous 2 builds, the kind of level of detail that you see there, and those surface finishes. Some of the features I want to carry on into the 3rd building, the chimneys, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, a very fun stage to start working on now. Start putting together some bits here to use. Nice chimney piece here that I'm going to fit on somewhere. I like making use of old computer parts also, or things that you can recover before throwing things out. Nice kind of fan object there, and that'll make a cool detail just to stick in there. I want to try and cover up this surface a bit. A few options for parts here. Makes it look maybe a bit more industrial, but it does help from just being a plain surface with some filler on it, which might look a bit rough when primed. You sometimes can't quite tell how rough they're going to look until you prime them. Just some plasticard stuck on either end of an open-ended piece just closes it off. And a lot of this is going to be super glue. I'll use the plastic glue where I can, but the super glue is useful. Okay, so I want to attach this chimney, which has a kind of slant to it, on there. This is an uneven surface though. Yeah, just tidying up a few smaller pieces here. So we've got this flat surface on what was a pretty simple box type object, and I've been filling up gaps and gluing other parts on in it. It's really one of the best bits about the whole detailing process, so that, you know, using greebles and things like that. It's just finding these unassociated random parts and gluing them together to form something quite different. And again, none of it needs to mean anything at all. It's meant to be random. And there you go, you end up with some very unique and busy items, which will, you know, take the paint really well when you get to weathering and things like that, and gives you something quite nice just to position on what would have been a flat surface somewhere. Be useful for doing sci-fi spaceships and things like that also, in that kind of Star Wars inspired way. Also need to make sure that I've got some platforms up and around, you know, the areas where people can get in and out of the buildings, and maybe stand up here and fire at the enemy or whatever. So I just got some, these will just be panels from tank kits and things like that. They're handy because they tend to have nice surface details like rivets and panel lines and things like that, various sizes, and you find that you can usually make things fit somewhere. Yeah, that would make for quite a nice sized walkway around that top area. Got these bits here which I'm going to stick like that, I think. That'll just give me a bit more support, something to glue this onto. Okay, I've added a number of platforms up at the top there in various bits of what would be steelwork, just to kind of keep it pretty steady now, which is the main thing. And it's good if it kind of looks a mess anyway. It's meant to be like that. That's the whole point in something like this. A structure like this should be all a bit random and hodgepodge. Bits like this, if they need a bit more strength, I've been using the bicarbonate of soda mixed with the super glue just to strengthen those parts up, and then cutting out bits of plastic just to roughly fit onto those supports. Really just trying to make sure that there's some sort of platform arrangement so that miniatures in any of those games can make their way up the structure and up to the top where they get a good view. But I also need ladders to connect these bits up, and getting something that will fit straight away is unlikely because nothing's a standard size. So it's just at least some sort of nod towards there being access up to the higher level with a ladder. Then what will start to make it look a lot better are when you just find random little bits here and there to fit in and creating interesting little shapes. Just making a simple chimney looking thing. And then that can go up here somewhere. I've mostly added all the barriers that I'm going to need, both at that level and up at the top. Again, just random bits of plastic for that. I can always just make little simple barriers for other spots where I need something to protect the ash wasters from falling off those platforms. Also got some nice domed plastic parts there, the see-through stuff. Just to make a little window, you'd want to mask that off before painting, of course. Okay, I think there's just about enough detail glued onto that now. I'm going to use this piece as one of those Necromunda market zone kits, something from that anyway. Might be nice to have a name of the shop or the trader or whatever this structure is going to be on there. Might be a little bit weak glued on. Need to try and get as many points in contact as I can. Just about there now with the details. Moving on to the kind of finer, smaller items. Just trying to indicate maybe something for a door here, or at least the way of getting access into the building down at that level. You can take this stage as far as you want. Just really about adding a bit of interest to some of the surfaces here and there. Kind of depends what you've got in the bits box at the time. Like these sorts of cables draped down. You can get those in the Necromunda or Sector Mechanicus kits. If they're still available, that is. I'm not sure if they're still on sale or not. Just hide the last Epson name. These bits I'll just take the weathering and washes or enamels or oils or whatever method that I'll be using to paint these things with. They take all those effects really well, these little details. Just add interest. To me, all these little bits like that just represent some sort of intercom for communicating with the people inside, and maybe try to get inside the building. You would click on something there and have to give a password or whatever. Okay, that's it for the general detailing. More than enough on there to make it look interesting. So that means I can now move on to the last step, or the last phase now, which involves cutting up the various sheets of card or plastic or styrene sheet and cladding some of these still plain surfaces, maybe things like this, the roof up there, one or two other areas that need something, just to help finish it all off. Yeah, I think I've got that to fit okay. You can just use the plain white glue for the likes of this. And again, the advantage of this being a shanty town or something to do with ash wastes is that things don't need to fit perfectly. I'm not too sure about the wisdom of the inverted roof, but I like it because it looks a bit different. I do think that this stage really adds a lot of character. Just helps confirm in your mind when you're looking at the structure that you're dealing with a shanty town, something suitable for the setting. Okay, just a couple bits around the door and that will do it here. Just about there now with getting all the cladding on. Just got the last few surfaces now to finish off. A good bit of time doing the cladding stage because I think it really makes a big difference to the model. It just helps sell it at the scale and sell it as being a scavenged, cobbled together structure when you have all these different surfaces brought together, and the cladding just helps sell it, and it doesn't take a lot of work to do. It's a nice straightforward process. Okay, that'll do it for this particular build. Really happy with that, how it's come out. It's got a lot of character, nice interesting silhouette with the overhangs and the extra height, and as with the others, as you rotate it you get some really different looks from it, and plenty of platforms for miniatures to get up onto. Exactly what this one is I'm not sure right now. Probably just a general settlement structure where the ash wasters can live, but there's maybe options for being some sort of trader, gunsmith, who knows. And then in combination with the first two structures from the build series, you have to try and visualise it, but when painted, it should make for some nice scenery, especially when you get down to eye level, human eye level. Get some nice little vistas through the structures, and that'll only get better as I add more to it. And there's quite a lot of flexibility for rearranging these buildings or structures in different ways. But yeah, once painted, it should look good. Really excited about doing that. But yeah, plenty more planned in the series. I've made a small start to the next structure, which should be a good one to do, and hopefully there's been something useful in this particular video if you're having a go at some kit bashing yourself for sci-fi themed terrain. But in any case, thanks very much for watching the video.